When you mask and you pretend like you're somebody who's fitting into the conventional path, or you pretend, but mostly when you're masking, you get exhausted. And so part of our maturation into fully embracing being a neurodivergent visionary is to realize very deep in our being that we do things differently and that we are meant to be leaders, and we might be a little bit later to the conventional path, but yet when that trajectory happens, it happens. Why you, as a neurodivergent visionary, were never meant to fit into a conventional path. Friends, it's Dianne here at Someone Gets Me, and today we're talking about being a neurodivergent visionary and that awkward experience of trying to fit into conventional paths or ways of doing things that just aren't meant for us. You know, I was thinking about how many times growing up that I kept trying to be like everyone else, especially when you're a teenager and everybody's wearing the same clothes or doing the same thing. And I remember saying I'm always a step out of line with everybody else. I was always up when they were down and down when they were up, and nothing ever seemed to just mesh in a really meaningful way. I mean, there were isolated moments, but not many. And over the years and the decades of my work personally and professionally, I realized that we weren't meant to go on those regular normal paths, right? And we talk about it now out here in the world. You see it all over social media and you see it in conversation. You know, I mentioned the word ADHD, or I say neurodivergence, or I'm twice exceptional. People know what that means now. When I was younger, there was not a whole lot of vocabulary and certainly not as much awareness. And so it was, you're really weird, you're an alien, you're an anomaly. I've been called an anomaly so many times, it's unbelievable. And earlier in my life, I took that as an insult. And then I didn't know how to take it. And now I see it as a compliment as I've grown in my evolution. But as a visionary and somebody who's neurodivergent, you're not meant to follow the regular path. That was never in the cards for you. And so all of your suffering and struggle and difficulty and dysphoria all come from trying to fit into a model and a way of being that isn't yours to start with. Now, we're taught that it is, and we're taught we should figure it out and we should be able to do it. And we can fake it for a while. We can mask our way through it, or we can pretend, but inside, there's that loneliness. Inside, there's that silent pain and silent misery. Many of the people who seek me out to work with me tell me that they're stuck. And part of their stuckness is they're trying to fit into a model that's not meant for them. And they're living in silent pain and silent misery. And it's devastating. I mean, I remember when I lived like that, and it's very hard. So I want you to hear me when I say that you're perfectly equipped and you have everything you need to do exactly what your heart wants you to do. It's all within you. You were born with it. Your job as a visionary adult is to start kind of being like that archaeologist. There you go. There's the word, archaeologist, and begin to dig in there and find all the gems and richness and things that are buried in you from a culture that doesn't understand. And so we can't sit around and go, well, it's all because I'm neurodivergent. That's why I'm having all the trouble. Well, we might have trouble and it might be related to neurodivergence, but it's not because of it. It's because of a mismatch in the community, in the culture, and our understanding. So it comes down to the point of us taking personal accountability for our path, our trajectory, what we're doing. I'm happy now in my life, and I don't do very many conventional things. And my path professionally is not conventional. And I'm happy about that because all the people in my world that I work with, none of us are conventional. We all have a different path. All of us are doing something that's amazing and fun and beautiful, and it's not conventional necessarily. It intersects with convention, but it's not conventional. So one of the first things I want to remind you as a visionary is that you see things differently than other people. Now, I remember when I discovered this awareness when I was about 17. I was at the University of Florida. And I remember calling my mom and saying, oh my gosh, what we always thought was normal and regular isn't. It's a whole different thing. And I remember going to classes, and I'm in this big university, and I like had my idea of what university life was supposed to be like, which was not even close, but that was the way it was. We always had these pictures in our mind, right? And I remember looking around and going, hold on, these people see the world differently than me. And I didn't know how to take it at first. And then I realized that I really do often see things differently than other people, that on a neurological basis, on a cognitive basis, I see things differently. And I'm not imagining it. It really is different. And when you see things differently and you put data points together, or you can have an understanding of something that nobody around you can see, it doesn't mean you're making it up or you're wrong. It means you can see something other people are unable to see. Now, sometimes they're just not aware enough, and sometimes they're just not able. All of us have come to earth here, and we have our gifts and our abilities and our talents. Our job is to enhance them and use them for the greater good. And so when you're a visionary, you see things other people can't see, which is why often visionaries have a real hard time with lack of structure. We need some kind of structure, and visionaries have a hard time sometimes executing what it is they see, though some visionaries I know are really good at the execution part. But really, you want to remember that you see things differently. You notice things that are ineffective or inefficient very fast. You can see corrected courses that need to happen in an organization or a family or your own life. You can look at a trajectory and see what's happening. A lot of the times, my intuition and my knowledge base and my ability to see things from a visionary perspective helps myself, and it also helps my clients with seeing possibility and the way things could happen in a way that works. We also know that our feelings, our energy that tells us we're alive, our feelings are so important here, because our feelings help show us the way. They're kind of like the road signs, right? If something feels off in my body, I know to pay attention in a different way than if something feels maybe smooth or aligned. Or if something's happening in my shoulder, that could tell me something different than something that's happening in my heart. So for all of us visionaries, the more we pay attention to our body and the nuance of our physical experience going through Earth, and the emotions that we're having and the energy that we're having and the ideas, and look at how it all comes together, then we're able to make friends with ourselves and follow our own unique path without beating ourselves up for not being conventional. Because after all, being conventional is not what you're here to do, right? You're here to leave a legacy and do something that is remarkable that only you can do. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean wealth or fame or any of that. It means that when we're aligned and we follow our heart's desire and we follow that inner guidance that tells us, work in this area, do this thing, and it usually is something that we're passionate about. When we follow that, then we are bringing our ultimate gift to the world. I have this vision in a meditation a lot of times where we as neurodivergent visionaries have these beautiful like jeweled boxes, that I see carved boxes in our hands, and we're humbly offering to the world, to ourselves, our family, the world, to the world at large, the beauty and the gift within it. And that beauty and gift is our presence, our ability, our understanding, our sensitivity, our level of compassion. Those things are in that box that you are here to bring into the world. And so it's a mighty experience. And sometimes it's confusing because we live in a world that wants us to be like machines, but visionaries are meant to live in their own rhythm. The second point I want to make in this conversation is that when you mask and you pretend like you're somebody who's fitting into the conventional path, or you pretend, but mostly when you're masking, you get exhausted. You end up with decision fatigue at the end of the day. You end up with delayed leadership problems. You end up with not being able to do things that the way you want to because you're doubting yourself or you have fear of success. There's all this sticky, gooky energy that follows you around when you're pretending to be something or someone you're not to try to fit in. Now, every neurodivergent person I know has done that to one extent or another, trying to find our way in the world, even when we have people around us who understand it, because the world at large does not, and we're not really sure where to go. Like in adolescence, we're trying to figure out who we are and what's our identity. When we're 3, we're figuring out what's mine and what's yours. And so part of our maturation into fully embracing being a neurodivergent visionary is to realize very deep in our being that we do things differently and that we are meant to be leaders, and we might be a little bit later to the conventional path, but yet when that trajectory happens, it happens. It's just so important, because I remember I was working with somebody not long ago and he goes, but I'm not, a supervisor yet. They keep passing over me. And it was simply because he didn't belong in that organization. And I also think that some of the people didn't know what to do with his intelligence. And so he ended up finding another position in another organization that was a little bit more progressive, a little bit more free thinking. And they were able to see the unbelievable talent this person had to putting things together and ideas and creating new products, and that they really embraced that in him. And he could see that it is something of value. And now he's very happy. And now he's a supervisor and a leader, and he's doing things within that organization that are very meaningful to him. But first he had to find the right fit. He had to be around people who would understand him, and he had to understand himself first so he could talk to others in that way and have conversation that matters. And so I think about it all the time. I think about him a lot because he really had to work hard to make friends with himself in order then to be able to act and verbalize in a way that's meaningful. The third thing I want to talk about is that your nervous system as a neurodivergent person requires different ways of functioning. So neurodivergent people usually don't like a whole lot of structure, and we need some foundation and structure. So if it gets too rigid, we rebel. If there's no structure at all, because you can, you're smart, you can figure it out kind of thing, that doesn't work either. So there is a balance for each one of us that is a structure without too much limitation, but yet not too loose, where our neurodivergence and our visionary self kind of gets lost in the ethers of great thoughts and conversation, and we don't get done what we want to get done. You also most likely operate on cycles. I know I do. A lot of the people I work with do. Our sleep goes in cycles. Our energy goes in cycles. We get into a project and we dive in for a day or 2 or 3 or a week. And when it starts extending out really long time, if we don't have some structure, it's going to get dropped most likely, or take a back seat, because something else will be happening and it'll be exciting. And that novelty and that excitement and that joy will overtake the other project. And it's not on purpose. It's the way our brain works. So to realize that if you're going to take care of yourself and you're going to be healthy and happy, you have to restore your energy. You have to give yourself permission to take care of yourself first, like really take care of yourself. You also want to know that when it comes to doing things differently, is our idea of productivity and success is not the same as other people's. It's not linear. Nothing we do is linear. And so when it's not linear like that, then we have to think of another way to kind of see how it goes. So I look at it as seasonal. Well, in the winter, we kind of hunker down. Those are when we're marinating our ideas. The springtime is when we birth the ideas. The summer is when we're growing the ideas. And the fall is when we're reaping the reward of the ideas. And that might follow the actual seasons you're living in, but it may not. It may be a seasonal, like cyclical way of seeing that we're human beings, not human doings. And so we want to live in a cycle and make friends with the cycles. I have one person I'm working with now, and he has a hard time with the fact that his sleep cycle changes every 3 months or so. And I'm like, well, because your brain operates differently, your body operates differently. You're still rested, right? Your lab works fine, right? There's nothing off, but yet you don't follow the typical, you have to go to bed at 10 and get up at 6 routine. That's not how his system works. So once he started making friends with the system and he quit judging it and comparing it to others, he started realizing that it really was working for him. I have a similar cycle when it comes to my creativity. I get up in the morning early before a lot of people around me are awake, and I get a lot of things done, and I'm real creative first thing in the morning, usually around 4 or 5, early in the morning. And then I'm okay during the mid morning, and then like mid afternoon, siesta time around 2 or 3, I can do things and I get a lot done, but that's not my creative zone of genius. That's either early in the morning or later in the evening. If I stay up past around 9 or 10, it comes back on again. But in the middle of the day, especially that afternoon time, it's not my most creative time. I can do creative things, but it's not where I'm in my zone. So where are you in your zone? Where are you when you are in that spot that is undeniably your core mission, your core energy, your core way of being? Because you, as a neurodivergent visionary, are not meant to do the regular routine thing. So when you compare yourself to that, you're comparing apples to oranges. You're not the same. I know somebody told me one time that, oh, because you think you're not the same, which I know I'm not, that it means that we all think we're special or that we're better than. And that's the farthest thing from the truth. It's actually harder to live this way because we're in the minority. It's actually more difficult to put yourself in a position where you don't belong necessarily and you have to find belonging. So as a neurodivergent visionary, I'm here to support you. I'm here to cheer you on. I believe in you. And I know that for all of us that operate a little differently, that it can be lonely sometimes, it can be challenging. And at the same time, we are meant to bring that part of us, that diverse part of us, that unique part of us, we're meant to bring it into the light. We are meant to show up at who we are in our own sovereignty. We are. And so I want to encourage you to do that. And so when you're comparing yourself to the conventional way of doing things, the regular, the normal way, which I tell everybody normal is a setting on my dryer. I don't even know what that means, really. What are you going to do? How are you going to bring it forward? That's why this podcast exists called Someone Gets Me, because I understand and I've lived it and I've heard it and I know how to handle it, right? But it's because when you finally feel heard and you finally have a sense of belonging and you finally understand that those things you're hiding within you, that silent pain or those quirks you have, you never tell anyone about, that they're okay and you're okay. There's nothing wrong with you. When you realize that people do get you and that first you have to get yourself, right? Then the world changes because you can relax now because you're safe. So I want to encourage you to make sure that you reach out and connect with people that you feel safe with. Allow yourself to feel a sense of belonging, understanding that you're not meant to be the conventional, normal, typical way. You're meant to be your unique, really cool, amazing self. So as always, you can do a get to know you call with me if you're curious about any of these topics or anything and you want to talk to me. 30 minutes, you can talk to me about whatever you want to. And that would be my joy to do that with you. You can also check out any of my books or anything like that. But most importantly, I want you to be inspired. I want you to be inspired to be who you're meant to be, to understand that if you look at your life and it doesn't follow that typical way we're all trained, that's a good thing. It's not because there's something defective. It is because you have great value. Until the next episode of Someone Gets Me, remember to keep your face to the sun so the shadows fall behind you because you're a rock star. You're here on purpose with a mighty purpose. So go out there and let your light shine. Check out who you really are from the inside out and put that smile on your face. Until the next episode of Someone Gets Me, this is Dianne saying, be well.